My name is Ayla Shkeen. I am from Branson High School, and today I will be performing my original oratory, How Deaf or Dead. Why don't we start things off with a quick history review? As many of us were taught in our history classes, 245 years ago, in the time America's founding fathers, the Declaration of Independence was written and signed. The second paragraph stated, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Well, that's been thrown out the window. Okay, that's enough drama for the introduction. I feel like some context is needed for anyone with any idea what I'm talking about, especially since a lot of Americans portray America as this perfect country where we have all the life, liberty, and ability to pursue happiness that we need. The truth is, America is very far from that view from rose-colored glasses country that we talk about so often, especially when it comes to the right to life. Picture this. Mere weeks ago, you received the biggest health scare of your life, and your choices were to either have a surgery or die. You had the surgery, as anyone would, hopefully. Recovery was rough, of course. You were quite literally cut open, what do you expect? But you made it through. You no longer have to worry about potentially staring death in the face. Your life is no longer on the line, and everything is A-okay. You can calm down and keep enjoying life like you did before the surgery. Or at least, so you thought. That's when the medical bills start to roll in. Thousands of dollars worth of bills appear in your mailbox, all because of something that you are unable to control. Don't you think that in the country we were used to for hundreds of years, that we have the right to life, we'd work a little bit harder to make that happen? I ask you this, why does this decision have to be death or debt? One of the biggest flaws of humanity is that we often tend to ask ourselves, well, this problem doesn't affect me, so why should I care about it? For example, a lot of people decide not to talk about healthcare or dismiss those who do because they have stable jobs, good health, and insurance. But they neglect to remember that not everyone is that lucky. To put in perspective, according to the CDC, the average amount for someone to spend on healthcare in 2018 was approximately $11,000. Meanwhile, according to Missouri Department of Labor, also in 2018, the minimum wage pay in Missouri was $7.85 an hour. If we do the math, assuming that the worker in question was working the average 40-hour work week, this turns out to be $16,328 a year. Meanwhile, according to Harvard Magazine, 10% of Americans are uninsured. Let's say that out there somewhere, there's a college student working minimum wage along with their schoolwork who doesn't have insurance. Can we really expect them to spend 2/3 of their income on healthcare? After all, they need to pay for tuition and rent, eat, get from place to place, and pay for any extra expenses that may be involved in their life, such as phone payments. If they happen to be more sickly than the average person, that's when the situation turns from difficult to devastating. This problem doesn't only affect theoretical situations. If it did, I wouldn't be here right now. But I digress. This is a real problem that has real-life consequences. According to Harvard Magazine, people are starting to skip doctor's visits and medication doses because they are too expensive. Can someone please explain to me how that lines up with the right to healthcare with the right to life that I mentioned in the introduction? Because to me, it seems like it's going directly against it. We don't just have what strangers say to go off of here. I, or at least my family, has also been affected by debt. When I was really little, my older brother was diagnosed with cancer. Now don't worry, he's fine now, everything is okay. That was a long time ago. But according to my mother, in the first 6 months of his treatment, we wound up with, if we hadn't been for insurance, we would wind up with $500,000 in debt. Let that sink in for a moment. A child's life was on the line, so they couldn't just opt out. If it hadn't been for my parents being lucky, insurance, and the generosity of my friends, of my parents' friends and family, then who knows where we've been right now. And there's some people that aren't that lucky. Now it's time to ask the real question. Why is this happening? What purpose does it serve to put the citizens of our country in debt? Here's one of the simplest answers. Greed. Manufacturers won't lower their prices. Why would they? After all, it makes them money, and going back to my first point for a second, it doesn't really affect them. So they turn a blind eye to it. There's a chance that if we all found out the lowest effective medicine brands and only purchased those, medication prices would drop as different brands competed for customers. But there's not a big chance that we'll be able to do that, because this is a big, divided country that isn't really capable of that kind of communication. One of the other solutions that came, according to Harvard Magazine, was that people could form a law preventing medicine from becoming too expensive. However, this could have some unintended side effects that might be worse, such as people using less money on medicine, on things like equipment and research for medicine. However, we can't lose hope. We seem to be ignoring the problem instead of trying to find a solution. There could be solutions that could get rid of those side effects, such as also passing a law preventing money being used for those purposes from being used for other things, like, for example, lining people's pockets. However, we appear to just be choosing to do nothing over doing that. I'm aware that I've said lots of negative information, which is rather hard to absorb. Well, just hang in there. I'll get to the positive things in a moment. I also realize that there are no truly simple solutions to this problem. Laws can be opposed, which makes the solution I mentioned earlier a little more difficult, especially when people keep influencing the situations. Meanwhile, we tend to delegate responsibility over to the leaders, which is, I'm not saying is a completely bad thing. Politicians should definitely try to fix this problem, but we need to take enough action to prove that a solution is necessary, not optional. I also worry that we will fix the problem just a little bit, only for it to collapse again. I don't want this to turn out like when you break something and then fix it just enough so that it breaks when the next person uses it and they think that they broke it. Just admit you've done that before. We've all done it. But getting back to my point, what we need is a solution that will last decades, or at least until our situation changes enough that the situation needs to be improved again. This is a quickly changing world and quickly changing country. So a solution might not work forever. But, well, we survived this long. Do you want to know why? We survived because we can adapt. When we, or a decent percentage of us, see that a solution is necessary and put our minds to changing it, then we change it. Not to mention, we have the biggest collection of resources in the history of the world at our fingertips. Not only do we have the internet, literally pretty much a fountain of knowledge, with books and each other's opinions alike, we also have physical books, each other's opinions, and the experiences of many existing and extinct governments to go off of too. Don't forget, they had to form a healthcare system too. Most importantly, we can't lose hope. We can't keep making this decision between death and debt. We can't keep forcing our citizens into piles of more and more debt. We need to stop this from being a decision between death and debt and start turning healthcare into what it is. A way to keep everyone alive and happy, just like it should be.